Captain Vextel pressed his three-fingered hand against the cold metal of the observation deck window. His large black eyes reflected the stars outside as his ship, the Void Collector, drifted slowly through the Kepler belt. The Zephyrian captain had been hunting for salvage in this part of space for over 20 cycles now. His blue-scaled skin showed the wear of years spent in the dark between worlds, searching for anything valuable enough to make the long journeys worthwhile. "Captain, we have something on the sensors," called out Chief Salvage Officer Creonal. From her station, her voice carried the excitement that all salvage crews knew well. The thrill of finding treasure in the endless void of space. Vextel moved across the bridge with quick steps. His crew was small, but skilled. They had found everything from ancient probe ships to cargo vessels loaded with rare metals. Each find meant credits, and credits meant they could keep flying through the stars instead of being stuck on some crowded planet. "What do you see?" he asked, looking over Creonal S's shoulder at the display screen. "Large metallic object, Captain. About 2 kilometers off our port side. Looks old. Very old. The metal signature is strange, though. I've never seen this pattern before in our databases." Vextel studied the readings. The object was big, much bigger than most salvage they found. The shape looked wrong, too. Most ships, they discovered, were smooth and curved, built for speed and beauty. This thing looked rough and angular, like someone had welded metal plates together without caring how it looked. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "But keep our shields up. Dead ships sometimes have surprises." The Void Collector turned toward the mysterious object. As they got nearer, their lights revealed the full shape of what they had found. It was definitely a ship, but unlike any ship in their records, the hull was dark gray metal, scarred with countless small impacts from space debris. Long sections showed the brown stains of radiation burns. Whatever this vessel was, it had been floating in space for a very long time. "Hull composition is mostly iron and steel alloys," reported Creonal, running her scans. "Very primitive materials, Captain. But there are traces of rare elements, too. Titanium, platinum, some compounds I cannot identify. Any signs of life?" Vextel asked. "None, sir. No power readings, no heat signatures, no communications. The ship is completely dead." Vextel smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Dead ships were the best kind of salvage. No complications, no survivors to deal with. Just valuable materials waiting to be collected. He walked to the main view screen and studied the alien vessel more carefully. The ship was long and narrow, with what looked like weapon ports along its sides. Strange symbols were painted on the hull, but they were too faded to read clearly. At the front was a section that might have been a command area, while the back showed the dark openings of engine ports. Everything about it suggested this had once been a warship of some kind. "I count at least 15 different types of valuable metals in that hull," Creonal said, still running her scans. "Plus, whatever technology might be inside. This could be our biggest find in years, Captain." "Any idea what species built it?" Vextel asked. Creonal shook her head. "Nothing in our databases matches this design. Construction methods are very different from anything we know. See these hull plates? They are welded together in overlapping sections. Most advanced species use single-piece construction or energy bonding. This looks almost primitive." "Primitive but effective," Vextel noted. "Look how well it has survived. Out here, most ships would have broken apart by now." He made his decision quickly. In the salvage business, hesitation meant someone else might claim your find. "Bring us alongside and extend the docking tube. Creonal, take a team aboard and start mapping the interior. Want to know what we are dealing with before we begin cutting." "Yes, Captain," she replied, already gathering her equipment. Within an hour, Creonal and 2 other crew members had crossed into the alien ship. Their portable lights cut through the darkness of corridors that had been black for decades. The air was thin, but breathable, suggesting the ship had once maintained atmosphere for a species that needed similar conditions to Zephyrians. "Captain, you need to see this." Creonal's voice came through the communications system. "This ship is much more advanced inside than it looks outside." Vextel listened as his salvage chief described what she was finding. The corridors were wide and straight, with smooth walls made of some kind of composite material. The primitive-looking exterior hid sophisticated internal systems. Cables and pipes ran in organized patterns behind access panels. Everything was built to military standards, tough and reliable. "I found what looks like crew quarters," Creonal continued. "But the sleeping areas are strange. They look like individual pods rather than simple beds. Captain, some of these pods are sealed shut." Vextel frowned. Sealed pods in a dead ship could mean anything. Be emergency systems, maybe storage, maybe something else entirely. "Can you tell what is inside them?" "The metal is too thick for our standard scanners. But there are power cables running to each pod. Whatever they are, they were important to this ship's function." "Keep exploring. I want a complete map before we start salvage operations." Over the next several hours, Creonal's team mapped most of the alien vessel. They found engineering sections filled with machinery they did not recognize, storage areas that had once held supplies, and what appeared to be weapon control rooms. Everything was built with the same strange combination of primitive-looking construction and advanced internal systems. The most interesting discovery was the ship's central core. Here, banks of dark screens and control panels suggested a command center. Far more sophisticated than anything the exterior design had suggested. Thick cables ran from this area to every part of the ship, like the nervous system of some great sleeping beast. "Captain, I think this ship had artificial intelligence," Creonal reported. "The central computer core is larger than most planetary systems I have seen, but like everything else, it appears to be completely dead." Vextel made calculations in his head. A ship this size with this much advanced technology could be worth more than everything they had salvaged in the past 5 years combined. The rare metals alone would pay for new equipment and ship upgrades. The unknown technology could be sold to research institutions for incredible profits. "Begin salvage operations," he ordered. "Start with the outer hull sections. I want those rare metal components removed first. Then we will work our way toward the center." "What about those sealed pods, Captain?" "Leave them for now. If they contain anything valuable, we will deal with them later. Right now I want to secure the materials we can identify." The Void Collector extended its massive cutting arms toward the alien ship. Powerful lasers began slicing through the hull plates, separating valuable sections from the main structure. The work was slow and careful. Damaged metal was worth less than clean pieces. As the cutting beams made their first incisions into the hull, something deep within the alien ship registered the breach. Systems that had been dormant for decades began running automatic checks. In the ship's central core, status lights that had been dark for so long began to flicker with the faintest hint of life. But the Zephyrian salvage crew noticed none of this. They saw only scrap metal and profit, unaware that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping in the cold dark of space, waiting for someone to make the mistake of treating it like mere salvage. The first thing Jake Morrison felt was cold. Not the comfortable cool of air conditioning, but the deep, bone-chilling cold that comes from sleeping in space for far too long. His eyes opened slowly, fighting against the bright lights that suddenly filled his vision. Every muscle in his body ached, as if he had been sleeping on rocks instead of in the most advanced hibernation pod the Earth Defense Force had ever built. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison, please remain still while I complete the awakening sequence," came a calm female voice from speakers near his head. Jake recognized the voice immediately. Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence, had been his constant companion during the long months before the accident. "Arya," he said, his voice rough and barely above a whisper. How long?" "You have been in emergency hibernation for 43 years, 7 months, and 12 days, Commander. I apologize for the extended sleep period, but circumstances required. Maintaining minimal power to avoid detection." 8. Tried to sit up, but his body would not obey. The hibernation process always left people weak, but this felt different. Worse, the crew. "I am afraid most of the crew did not survive the emergency hibernation protocols, Commander. The damage to our life support systems was more severe than initially calculated. However, 4 other crew members remain viable and are being awakened as we speak." The pod around Jake began to hiss as it released the remaining hibernation gases. Slowly, feeling began to return to his arms and legs. He forced himself to focus on breathing steadily while his body remembered how to function. The used Defiant had been humanity's first real deep space exploration vessel. Sent beyond the outer colonies to scout for new worlds and resources, Jake had been proud to serve aboard her, proud to be part of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. Arya, what happened to us? The last thing I remember was that gravitational anomaly near the gas giant. The anomaly was not natural, Commander. We believe it was some form of alien technology, possibly a defensive system. The Defiant was severely damaged when we encountered it. Main engines were destroyed, most of our hull was breached, and we lost 90% of our crew. I was forced to initiate emergency protocols to save the remaining survivors. Jake finally managed to sit up, his head spinning from the effort. Around him, the hibernation bay looked exactly as he remembered it, except for the empty pods that should have held his friends and crewmates. Out of 47 people who had started this mission, only 5 had survived. The weight of that loss hit him like a physical blow. The other survivors? Commander Lisa Parker, your tactical officer. Chief Engineer Danny Roberts, medical officer. Dr. Amy Walsh, and Communications Specialist Ryan Clark. All are being awakened now. Jake forced himself to stand, using the pod's edge for support. His legs felt like water, but he had to keep moving. A ship's status. That is why I awakened you, Commander. We have a situation. Unknown aliens are currently aboard the Defiant. They appear to be conducting salvage operations, treating us as a derelict vessel. They've been cutting into our hull for the past 6 hours. The news hit Jake like ice water. Aliens. Humanity had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Now he knew they were not, and these aliens were. Treating his ship like scrap metal. Are they hostile? Unknown? They have not attempted to access occupied areas of the ship, and they appear to believe we are a dead vessel. I have maintained minimal power and avoided any actions that might reveal our true status. However, they are systematically removing valuable components from our outer hull sections. Jake stumbled toward his uniform locker, his body slowly responding better to his commands. The Earth Defense Force had trained him for many situations, but waking up to find aliens salvaging his ship had not been one of them. Can you show me what we are dealing with? The wall screen flickered to life, showing the external camera feeds. Jake saw the alien ship for the first time, a massive vessel that looked like a floating factory. Mechanical arms extended from its hull, carefully cutting pieces from the Defiant's outer armor. The aliens moved with practiced efficiency, clearly. Experienced at this kind of work? How many of them? Approximately 8 individuals that I can detect. They appear to be a species I will call Zephyrians, based on their physical characteristics. Bipedal, scaled skin, larger than average humans. Their technology appears advanced, but not beyond our capabilities. Jake pulled on his uniform, his mind racing through possibilities. The Defiant was a military vessel, designed for exploration, but equipped for defense. Even damaged, she had capabilities these aliens probably could not imagine. But with only 5 crew members against 8 aliens with an unknown level of technology, direct confrontation would be suicide. Arya, can they detect our conversation? Negative, Commander. I am using internal communications only, and there. Scanning equipment does not appear sophisticated enough to detect our minimal power usage. The door to the hibernation bay opened, and Lisa Parker stumbled in, still pale from her own awakening. Jake had served with Lisa for 3 years before this mission, and he had never been happier to see anyone. She was one of the best tactical officers in the fleet, and if anyone could help him figure out how to deal with this situation, it was her. Jake, she said, her voice still weak but getting stronger. Arya filled me in. We have company. Unwelcome company, Jake replied. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a transport shuttle, but I will live. Danny and Amy are awake too. Ryan is having some trouble with the hibernation after effects, but he should be functional within the hour. Danny Roberts appeared in the doorway, supporting a shaky Ryan Clark. The chief engineer looked older than Jake remembered, but his eyes were sharp and alert. Danny had kept the Defiant running through impossible situations before, and Jake hoped he could do it again. Skipper, Danny said, using Jake's old nickname. Arya says, we have aliens taking apart our ship. What are we going to do about it? Dr. Amy Walsh joined them, carrying a medical kit and looking more awake than any of them. I have been reviewing the medical data Arya collected on our visitors, she said without preamble. They appear to be carbon-based like us, but with different atmospheric requirements. More importantly, their technology suggests they see us. As primitives, Jake looked at his surviving crew, for people he trusted with his life. They were all that remained of humanity's first deep space mission, and now they faced an impossible situation. But as he looked at their faces, he saw the same determination that had gotten them through training and carried them this far from Earth. Arya, can you bring our defensive systems online without alerting them? Yes, Commander. The Defiant's stealth capabilities were designed specifically to avoid detection by unknown threats. I can gradually restore power to critical systems while maintaining the appearance of a dead vessel. Good. Lisa, I need you to analyze their ship and find weaknesses. Danny, get me a full damage report on our systems. Amy, keep studying these aliens. Want to know everything about them. Ryan, once you are feeling better, see if you can intercept their communications. Lisa managed a weak smile. You have a plan? Jake looked at the screen showing the aliens methodically stripping his ship apart. They thought they had found easy salvage, another dead vessel to pick clean. They had no idea they were dismantling a warship with a very much alive crew. I am working on it, he said. But whatever we do, we need to make them think they are still dealing with a derelict. Let them keep believing we are just scrap metal until we are ready to show them otherwise. Jake Morrison crouched in the maintenance tunnel that ran along the Defiant's main corridor, watching the alien salvage team through a hidden camera feed on his portable display. The Zephyrians moved through his ship with casual confidence, treating the corridors like they owned them. They had no idea that 5 very angry humans were watching their every move. They're in Section C7 now, Lisa Parker whispered through the comm system. 3 of them are removing the navigation relay panels. I think those components are just scrap electronics. Jake smiled grimly. The navigation relays contained some of the most advanced quantum processors humanity had ever built. If the aliens thought they were just simple electronics, it showed how much they underestimated human technology. That mistake was going to cost them. Danny, how are the weapons coming along? Jake asked quietly. Slowly but surely, Skipper, came Danny, Robert's voice from the engineering section. I have got the defensive grid about 30% operational. The aliens keep walking right past the weapon ports without realizing what they are. Their scanners only pick up basic metal signatures. Jake had been amazed to learn that the Defiant's advanced stealth systems were still functioning perfectly. The ship had been designed to look less threatening than it actually was, a philosophy that was paying off now. The Zephyrians saw primitive metal construction on the outside and assumed the inside matched. They had no idea they were stripping components from one of humanity's most advanced warships. Amy, what have you learned about them? Jake asked. Dr. Amy Walsh had been studying the aliens from her position in the medical bay, using sensors the salvage team could not detect. They are definitely carbon-based, but their homeworld probably has lower gravity than Earth, their movements suggest. They are not used to our artificial gravity settings. More importantly, they seem to have very little military experience. Makes you say that? They do not watch their backs. They do not secure areas before entering them, and they work with their weapons powered down. These are civilians, Jake. Salvage specialists, not soldiers. That information changed everything. Jake had been planning for a military encounter, but if these were just salvage workers, he had more options. Civilians could be reasoned with, scared or convinced to leave without violence. But first, he needed to get their attention. Ryan. Any luck with their communications? Ryan Clark had set up his equipment in the communications bay, using the Defiant's passive sensors to intercept alien transmissions. I am getting somewhere, Commander. Their language is complex, but Arya is helping me build a translation matrix. I should have basic communication capability within a few hours. Good work, everyone. Now here is what we are going to do. Jake outlined his plan to his crew. It would make the Zephyrians believe that their salvage operation had accidentally awakened some kind of automatic defense system in the dead ship. The aliens would think they had triggered ancient security protocols, not realizing they were dealing with a very much alive crew. The plan began with Danny Roberts in the engineering section. He started bringing ship systems online in a careful sequence that would look like automated responses to the hull breaches. First, emergency lighting began flickering in corridors the aliens had not yet explored. Then, atmospheric processors started cycling, creating strange sounds in the ventilation system. Arya, can you make it look like the main computer is running self-diagnostic routines? Jake asked. Of course, Commander. I will create the appearance of ancient systems slowly coming back to life after being triggered by hull damage. Section 107. The Zephyrian salvage team stopped their work as lights began flashing in sequence down the corridor. Creonal raised her scanner, trying to understand what was happening. Her readings showed power fluctuations throughout the ship, as if dead systems were suddenly receiving energy. Captain Vexdal, she called through her communicator. We have a problem. The derelict is showing signs of activity. Back on the Void Collector, Captain Vexdal studied the readings his crew was sending him. The dead ship was definitely becoming active, but the power signatures looked old and automatic, like emergency systems finally responding to the damage. His crews had inflicted. It is probably just some kind of fail-safe protocol, he told Creonal. Ancient ships sometimes had systems that activated when the hull was breached. Keep working, but stay alert. Jake listened to the translated conversation and smiled. The aliens were doing exactly what he had hoped. They thought they were dealing with old automated systems, not a living crew. Now it was time to increase the pressure. Lisa, start Phase 2. Lisa Parker began activating the ship's internal security systems in random patterns. Doors started opening and closing in empty corridors. Security cameras began tracking movement. That was not there. The ship's internal speakers started playing soft sounds, like the groaning of metal under stress or the whisper of air through damaged vents. The psychological effect on the Zephyrian salvage team was immediate. They began looking over their shoulders, jumping at shadows, reporting strange noises to their captain. The dead ship was starting to feel very much alive, and they did not like it. Captain, the ship is responding to our presence, Kriana reported, her voice tight with worry. Doors are opening when we approach, and I swear the lighting is following us. Impossible, Vexdal replied, but Jake could hear the uncertainty in his translated voice. Ships do not work that way. This one does, Captain. I recommend we finish our work quickly and leave. Jake decided it was time for Phase 3. Amy, you are up. Dr. Walsh began using the ship's medical scanners to track the aliens' movements, then fed that information to Arya. The ship's AI began coordinating responses that made it seem like the vessel was aware of where the intruders were at all times. Lights would dim when they entered a room and brighten when they left. Ventilation systems would change their sounds based on alien movement. Most unnervingly, the ship began opening doors just before the aliens reached them, as if anticipating their path. This is not natural, one of the Zephyrian team members said, his translated voice shaking. Dead ships do not predict where you are going to walk. Jake watched the aliens becoming more and more nervous, but he needed something bigger to really get their attention, something that would make them understand they were not just dealing with automatic systems. Danny, can you give me a controlled power surge in their section? Something impressive but not dangerous? You got it, Skipper. Danny Roberts carefully overloaded a power coupling in Section C7, creating a spectacular display of sparks and electrical arcs. The lights in the entire section flashed bright white, then went dark for several seconds. Before coming back on in an eerie blue glow, the effect on the salvage team was exactly what Jake had hoped for. They grabbed their equipment and ran for the nearest exit, purporting to their captain that the ship was becoming dangerously unstable. Captain, we need to leave now, Creonal called out. The ship is not just active, it is reacting to us. This is not some ancient automatic system. Something is controlling these responses. Jake could hear the fear in her voice, and he felt a moment of sympathy. These were just workers trying to make a living, not soldiers or conquerors. But they had made the mistake of treating his ship and his dead crewmates like garbage, and that was not something he could forgive easily. Continue monitoring them, he told his crew. But do not let them leave yet. I want them scared enough to listen when we finally make contact, but not so terrified they do something stupid. The Defiant continued its ghostly performance, convincing the Zephyrians that they had awakened something ancient and powerful. Soon Jake knew it would be time to reveal the truth. But first, he wanted these aliens to understand that they were not dealing with primitive technology or dead metal, they were dealing with humanity. Captain Vextal paced across the bridge of the Void Collector, his scaled hands clenched behind his back. The salvage operation that had started so promisingly was turning into a nightmare. His crew reported increasingly strange behavior from the derelict ship. The valuable materials they had planned to harvest were becoming secondary to the growing mystery of what they had found. Captain Creonal is requesting immediate extraction, his communications officer reported. She says the ship is actively hunting her team. Hunting them? Vextal stopped pacing. Ships do not hunt, they are machines. That is what I told her, sir. But the power readings from the derelict are unlike anything in our databases. The patterns suggest intelligence, not just automated responses. Jake Morrison listened to the translated conversation from his position in the Defiance Command Center. The aliens were exactly where he wanted them, confused and frightened, but not yet ready to flee. It was time to spring the final part of his trap. Arya, are you ready to cut their docking systems? All preparations are complete, Commander. Can sever their connection to us at any time while maintaining the appearance that their own equipment is malfunctioning. Lisa, weapon systems. 70% operational and climbing, Lisa Parker replied from the tactical station. Our main guns are still damaged from the original accident, but the defensive arrays are fully functional. If these aliens try anything hostile, we can stop them. Danny, what about their ship? Danny Roberts had been studying the Void Collector through the Defiance sensors for hours. It is a salvage vessel, not a warship. It's heavily armored for working in dangerous environments, but no serious weapons. Their main advantage is size and industrial equipment. In a straight fight, we would win easily. Jake nodded, satisfied with his crew's preparations. The aliens had underestimated human technology from the beginning, and now they were about to learn the consequences of that mistake. But he wanted to give them one last chance to understand what they were really dealing with before he revealed the truth. Ryan, is the translation system ready? Ready, Commander. I can broadcast on their communication frequencies with full translation capability. Good. Begin the final phase. The Defiance system suddenly went quiet. Strange lights and sounds that had been terrorizing the Zephyrian salvage team stopped completely. Emergency lighting switched to normal illumination, and the ship's corridors became as still as a tomb. For a moment, it seemed like whatever had been awakened had gone. Back to sleep. On the Void Collector, Captain Vextal watched his sensors with growing confusion. The derelict has gone silent again. All power readings have returned to minimal levels. Creonal's voice came through the communicator, cautious but relieved. Captain, the ship appears to have stopped responding to us. Maybe we triggered some kind of security cycle that has now completed itself. Resume salvage operations, Vextal ordered, but stay alert. If that ship activates again, I want immediate notification. Jake waited until the alien salvage team had returned to their work before he gave the signal. Now Arya. Every system on the Defiant came online at once. The ship's true power signature blazed across every sensor the aliens possessed. External. Lights illuminated the hull, revealing the sleek lines of a military vessel that had been hidden beneath layers of space debris and radiation scarring. Weapon ports that had been disguised as simple hull features opened to reveal the deadly technology. Within, the transformation was breathtaking and terrifying. In the space of seconds, what had appeared to be a primitive derelict revealed itself as one of the most advanced warships the galaxy had ever seen. The Defiant's stealth systems dropped completely, showing her true colors for the first time. In over 40 years, impossible, Vextal whispered. staring at his screens in shock. "The power readings are off our scales. This ship is more advanced than anything in our databases." The alien salvage team aboard the Defiant found themselves surrounded by active displays, humming machinery, and the unmistakable signs of a fully operational military vessel. Blast doors sealed the sections they were in, trapping them aboard a ship they now realized was very much alive. "Captain, we are trapped," Creonal reported, her voice tight with fear. "The ship has sealed us in." "This is not a derelict, sir. This is a fully functional warship, and we are prisoners aboard it." Jake Morrison stood up from the command chair he had not sat in for over 4 decades. His uniform was wrinkled from hibernation, but his bearing was that of a military officer in complete control of his ship. Around him, his crew took their stations with the precision of trained professionals. "Arya, open a communication channel to the alien vessel." "Channel open, Commander." Jake looked directly into the main view screen, knowing that his image would appear on the bridge of the void collector within seconds. When he spoke, Ryan's translation system would carry his words to the aliens in their own language. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force vessel U.S. Defiant. You are currently trespassing on a human military ship and have taken hostile action against Earth property. Identify yourself and explain your presence here." The silence that followed Jake's transmission lasted for nearly a minute. On the Void Collector's bridge, Captain Vextall stared at the human face on his screen, trying to process what he was seeing. The derelict ship was not derelict. The primitive technology was not primitive, and the species he had never heard of was very much alive and very much angry. "I am Captain Vextall of the salvage vessel Void Collector," he finally replied. "We believed your ship to be abandoned. We detected no life signs, no power signatures, no indication of an active crew. We meant no harm. You meant no harm while cutting apart our hull and stealing our equipment?" Jake's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "You treated my ship like scrap metal and my dead crew like specimens for your databases. That does not sound harmless to me." Lisa Parker spoke quietly from her station. "Commander, their weapons are powering up. I do not think they intend to surrender." Jake had expected this possibility. Cornered animals often attacked when they realized they were trapped. These aliens were about to discover just how trapped they really were. "Captain Vextall," Jake said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded ships in combat. "I strongly advise against any hostile action. You are outgunned, outmatched, and completely surrounded by technology you do not understand. Your salvage ship is not equipped for military engagement. You are only 5 individuals," Vextall replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "We are 8, and we have the larger ship." Jake smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You think we are only 5 individuals? Arya, show him what he is really dealing with." The Defiant's weapon systems came online with a display that was designed to intimidate. Energy weapons charged with visible power buildup, missile ports, opened to reveal their deadly contents, and defensive systems activated with the smooth precision of advanced military technology. The ship's sensors locked onto the Void Collector with targeting beams that painted the alien vessel like a target. "Captain!" Creonal's terrified voice came through the communicator. "The ship's weapons are aimed directly at us. The targeting systems are more sophisticated than anything I have ever seen. If they fire, we will not survive." Vextall looked at the human on his screen, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. He had not found an abandoned derelict to salvage. He had found a sleeping predator and made the fatal error of waking it up. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jake Morrison stood in the Defiant's conference room, face to face with Captain Vextall for the first time. The Zephyrian captain was taller than Jake had expected, his blue scales catching the light as he moved nervously. Behind him stood Creonal and 2 other members of his salvage crew, all of them clearly uncomfortable being aboard what they now knew was a human warship. "May sit," Jake said, gesturing to the chairs around the conference table. His crew had quickly modified the alien furniture to accommodate Zephyrian physiology, another demonstration of human adaptability that had not gone unnoticed. Vextall remained standing for a moment, his large black eyes studying the human officers around the table. Lisa Parker sat to Jake's right, her tactical expertise evident in how she positioned herself to watch all the aliens simultaneously. Danny Roberts had joined them from engineering, still wearing his work uniform and carrying tools that looked far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen. Dr. Amy Walsh sat across from the aliens, her medical scanner discreetly gathering biological data while maintaining a friendly expression. "Before we begin," Jake said, "I want to make something clear. You are not prisoners. You are guests aboard my ship, and you will be treated with the respect that guests deserve. However, you will also understand that this situation requires certain security measures." Vextel finally sat down, his movements careful and controlled. "Commander Morrison, I must apologize for our actions. We truly believed your vessel was a derelict. In our culture, abandoned ships become salvage rights for whoever finds them. We meant no disrespect to your species or your dead." "I understand," Jake replied. "I appreciate your honesty. But you need to understand something about humans. We do not abandon our ships or our dead. The Defiant has been waiting in space for over 40 years for a rescue that never came. We survived in hibernation because we never gave up hope." Greenell spoke up, her voice hesitant. "Commander, our scanners showed no life signs, no power emissions, no indication that anyone was alive aboard this vessel. How did you hide from our detection?" Danny Roberts leaned forward with a slight smile. "Human military technology is designed around a simple principle. We prefer our enemies to underestimate us rather than fear us. The Defiant was built to look less dangerous than she actually is." "But your construction methods," Vextel said, confusion clear in his voice. "Plating, the welded joints, the primitive appearance. These are not the hallmarks of advanced technology." "No," Jake agreed. "They are the hallmarks of practical technology. Human ships are built to be repaired in the field with basic tools and materials. Pretty does not matter when you are light years from home and your life support system needs fixing." Dr. Walsh activated a wall display showing images of Earth and the human colonies. "We would like to learn about your people, Captain Vextel. This is humanity's first contact with another sapient species. Despite the circumstances, this is a historic moment." The Zephyrian captain studied the images with obvious interest. Cities that stretched across continents, space stations orbiting, blue worlds, ships that moved between stars carrying millions of human colonists. "Your species is more widespread than we realized. These images show a civilization that spans multiple star systems. 17 colonies across 8 systems," Lisa confirmed. "With more planned as our exploration fleet maps new regions. The Defiant was part of that exploration effort when we encountered the gravitational anomaly that damaged us." Gravitational anomaly. Vextel's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of surprise that the humans had learned to recognize. "You mean the keeper stations?" Now it was Jake's turn to be surprised. "Keeper stations? Ancient defense systems left by a species that vanished long ago. The galaxy is full of them. Most spacefaring civilizations learn to avoid the regions where they are active." "You encountered one without knowing what it was?" Jake exchanged glances with his crew. The anomaly that had nearly destroyed them was apparently a known hazard too. Other species, we had no way of knowing. Humans have only been exploring beyond our local cluster for the past 50 years. 50 years, Greenell repeated. "Captain, this species has achieved interstellar travel and colonization in only 50 years. That level of expansion rate is unprecedented." Vextel leaned back in his chair, reassessing everything he thought. He knew about humans. Most species take centuries to expand beyond their home systems. "How did you achieve such rapid growth?" "Necessity," Jake replied simply. "Earth was becoming overcrowded, and we needed resources and living space. We developed the technology we needed and pushed forward. Humans are good at adapting to new challenges." Dr. Walsh brought up medical data on her screen. "Captain, I have been analyzing your biological scans. Our species are remarkably compatible. Similar atmospheric requirements, comparable nutritional needs, even shared resistance to certain radiation types. This suggests our evolutionary paths may have more in common than random chance would allow." "Interesting," Vextel mused. The galactic community has long theorized about seeded evolution. The idea that an ancient species might have influenced the development of life on multiple worlds. Humans and Zephyrians share more than just this moment. Galactic community, Lisa asked. A loose confederation of spacefaring species. We share information, trade resources, and coordinate exploration efforts. Currently, there are 47 member species, though not all are equally active. Jake felt a surge of excitement. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now he was learning that not only were there other species, but they had formed a community that spanned the galaxy. Would humans be welcome in this community? He asked. Vextel considered the question carefully. That would depend on many factors. The community values peaceful cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual respect. Based on what I have seen of your species, I believe humans would fit well. However, your military capabilities might cause some concern. Why? Danny asked. Do other species not have military forces? They do, but not like this, Cranial replied, gesturing around the Defiant. Most species build specialized vessels. Exploration ships for discovery, cargo ships for transport, warships for defense. Humans appear to build ships that can do everything. Defiant is simultaneously an exploration vessel, a scientific platform, and a military ship capable of defending itself against superior numbers. We call it being practical, Jake said with a slight smile. When you are exploring unknown space, you never know what you might encounter. It is better to be prepared for anything. This adaptability is what makes humans dangerous, Vextel observed, but it is also what makes them valuable. The community needs species that can handle unexpected situations. Dr. Walsh looked up from her medical analysis. Captain, I would like to request permission to provide medical aid to your injured crew member. My scans show that one of your people has internal injuries that are not being properly treated. Blinked in surprise. You would help us? After we attempted to salvage your ship? You thought we were dead? Amy replied simply. And now you are not. Doctors help people who need help. That is what we do. The Zephyrian captain watched as the human medical officer gathered her equipment and prepared to treat his injured crew member. These humans were unlike any species he had encountered. They combined military strength with scientific curiosity, practical engineering with compassionate medicine. Commander Morrison, he said finally, I believe I owe you more than an apology. I owe you a debt. Not just for sparing my crew, but for opening my eyes to what your species truly represents. Jake stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a moment's hesitation, Vextel took it. Captain, I think this is the beginning of a very interesting relationship. Would you be willing to escort the Defiant to this galactic community of yours? It seems humanity has some introductions to make. As the two captains shook hands, Jake reflected on the strange path that had brought them to this moment. The Defiant had been mistaken for scrap metal. But that mistake had led to humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. Sometimes the best discoveries came from the most unexpected places. The stars were calling, and humanity was finally ready to answer with the full knowledge that they were not alone in the universe.